Parashat Re'eh opens with a stark imperative. See, I place before you today a blessing and a curse. The very first word, Re'eh, see, demands an immediate individual perception of reality. But there is an immediate friction in the Hebrew grammar. The verb re'eh is singular, addressed to a single person, yet the target of the command is plural, a collective nation standing at the threshold of Canaan. Looking at this Torah scroll, we see what follows that singular command, an overwhelming collective apparatus. The text shifts from individual vision into dense columns detailing centralized worship. It immediately channels that vision into a predetermined legal architecture, redirecting perception into a communal system. This tension between the individual I and the collective law suggests a structural gap, a place where perception and articulation have begun to pull apart. It is our first indication of a deeper rupture that the text is attempting to manage. The elaborate dietary prohibitions and cultic laws of Re'eh serve a specific psychological function. They are the tools used to navigate that structural gap. When a community confronts a reality that is too chaotic or painful to process directly, it often employs sublimation, the act of displacing an unbearable trauma into highly regulated, manageable rituals. A singular theological fracture branches into thousands of legal nodes. Rules on eating and tithing manage a hidden wound. This vast architecture surrounds a linguistic void, the loss of a unified divine language, operating as a perimeter wall around an inarticulable rupture. Re'eh's entire legal framework is a civilizational sublimation strategy. It attempts to ritualize a theological rupture that the community can no longer heal. To understand this loss, we have to look at what was supposedly broken. The text points back to an Edenic state, a cosmic unity where divine speech, physical reality, and human perception were perfectly aligned. The shattering of that single language into mutual incomprehension at Babel created a structural exile of the tongue. This linguistic homelessness precedes any physical displacement from the land. The signifier and the signified are violently disconnected. A community that once apprehended reality as a unified whole now finds itself in a world where the name and the thing no longer match. This fracture birthed the Hebrew block logic mindset. Instead of building neat propositional systems to describe the world, Hebrew thought focuses on experiencing truth as a direct encounter. The Torah commands the individual to see and then immediately moves to collective law without explaining the transition. This refusal to close the gap is not a failure of logic. It is a fidelity to a truth that can no longer be neatly systematized. The division between singular seeing and collective law is the permanent condition of a people encountering a reality that can no longer be fully articulated. When the psyche confronts an overwhelming, unbearable reality, it often relies on depersonalization, stripping the encounter of its terrifying intimacy to protect the observer. At the threshold of Canaan, the Israelites faced a chaotic multiplicity of sacred experiences. Local populations worshipped on the high mountains, on the hills, and under every leafy tree. The archaeological record preserves this scattered pluralism. These stone foundations represent an overwhelming, decentralized sacred presence that threatened the community's need for order. Re'eh responds with a defense mechanism, the total annihilation of these diverse sites. They are replaced by a single, unnamed place where God's name will dwell. Contrast those scattered ruins with this centralized site. The hovering roof structure physically represents the theological containment demanded by the text, managing this sacred plurality. Centralization is the ultimate protective fantasy. It depersonalizes the terrifying multiplicity of the sacred, channeling it into the manageable structures of monotheistic law. This drive for structure generates the binary system that dominates Parashat Re'eh: blessing versus curse, tahor versus tameh, the permitted versus the forbidden. An unmoored civilization must sort reality to maintain boundaries. Raw experience is forced through a categorizing system to keep chaos at bay. This binary obsession is the grammar of a lost, unified tongue. Rigid categorization is the only tool to process the world. Because reality can no longer be apprehended as a unified whole, it must be constantly and vigorously divided. These binary laws function as a structural grammar. For a community in linguistic exile, these rigid categories provide the boundaries needed to organize a reality that no longer feels whole. Re'eh's system is an attempt at active engineering, a physical reconstruction of the cosmic unity that was shattered at Babel. As the era of the Tanakh gives way to the Talmud, the focus of this engineering shifts. The external legal apparatus, the physical altars and pilgrimages, migrates into the architecture of the mind. Re'eh's laws become a framework for internal psychological navigation. The other is no longer the Canaanite altar on a distant hill. The danger now resides within the divided Halakha self, constantly negotiating the boundaries between clean and unclean. Over millennia, the Babel wound has been turned inward. It has become the very structure of Jewish legal and mystical subjectivity. This complex psychological architecture forces a final question. Was the unified Edenic language ever a historical reality, or is it a retrospective myth created to organize the trauma of human division? This manuscript shows a text assembled by many hands over 1,000 years. The singular origin point remains inaccessible. Yet whether history or myth, the linguistic rupture dictates the Jewish experience. The trauma of the fracture remains deeply real. We see the weight of this trauma in the physical transmission of the text itself. This trauma finds a material expression in archaeological survival. The exact phonemes and syntax scattered at Babel are the same ones preserved on the stone and parchment we read today. Reading Lashon HaKodesh in the present day is a direct encounter with that survival. The language that was shattered remains the only vehicle for the law. The material persistence of the Hebrew text is a literal traumatic return. It stands as a wounded but unbroken monument, carrying the trace of a loss it can never directly name.